I just wanted to go swimming, but a bully suddenly shoved my head underwater. It took almost a minute before he finally let go. I surfaced, gasping for air, but the next second, he snatched my telescope and threw it into the lake. I completely lost my mind. I grabbed a stick and struck him down. Then I jumped into the water, desperately searching for the telescope, but the lake was too deep. No matter how many times I dived down, I couldn't find it. When I finally climbed out of the water, the bully was still lying on the ground. He wasn't moving, and he didn't respond to me. I thought I had killed him. Terrified, I ran away. I didn't dare go back to the group home because the telescope, it belonged to my roommate, the last gift his father had ever left him. With nowhere else to go, I went to a neighbor's house and picked up my little brother. Mom had left him there, promising she'd be right back, but once again she was a no-show. That evening, Mom finally showed up and took us both out. I thought we were finally going home, but on the way, she ran into some of her friends. They invited her to hang out, and Mom didn't hesitate for a second. She wrote the bus route on the back of my hand, kissed us goodbye, and vanished into their laughter. And just like that, I was back to taking care of my little brother. I took his hand and led him to the bus stop. But when we got back to the apartment, the spare key was gone. Mom usually hid it in a boot by the door, but this time, there was nothing inside. I called her over and over again, but she never picked up. I didn't want to believe she had actually abandoned us, so I took my brother and went looking for her. We went to the bar where she worked first, but the people there said Mom hadn't shown up in days. Next, we went to the spot where she usually hung out with her friends. The room was packed, and the air was thick with smoke. I searched through the crowd over and over, but she was nowhere to be seen. Later, I saw a woman from afar, leaning against Mom's ex-boyfriend's chest. For a split second, I thought I had finally found her. But when the woman turned around, I realized I had the wrong person. I borrowed someone's phone and dialed Mom's number again, but all I heard on the other end was the same cold voicemail. I finally took my brother back to the apartment, but the key still wasn't there, and there was no message from Mom by the door. Night had fallen, and we had nowhere to go. Luckily, I found an abandoned garage and kept my little brother safe for the night. The next morning, my brother clutched his stomach and told me he was hungry. We didn't have a single penny on us, so I told my brother to go into a cafe and grab some free sugar and creamer packets. The second he came out, we took off running, and then poured the sugar and creamer straight into our mouths. It wasn't a real breakfast, but at least stopped complaining about being hungry. After that, we walked into a mall. It was warm and bright inside, and for a few minutes, we almost felt like normal kids. Then I saw a telescope, the exact same one the bully had thrown into the lake. I looked at the price tag, but there was no way I could afford it. I thought about my roommate waiting for me back at the home, and how I had lost the last keepsake his father ever gave him. So I tore off the price tag, slipped the telescope under my coat. No alarms went off, and no one stopped me. I actually got away with it. But immediately after, I suddenly remembered my brother was still inside. I spun around instantly and rushed back into the store. Unfortunately, a clerk recognized me and started yelling for me to stop. I panicked and took off running. I pushed through the crowd, ducked under a barricade, and bolted out into the street. Then I searched the streets around the mall over and over, but there was no sign of my brother. I rushed back to the mall and searched every single floor. I checked the toy stores, the restrooms, the escalators. Stores began closing one by one, and the lights shut off. Security guards kicked me out. I stood outside the locked doors, the stolen telescope still hidden under my coat. I had tried to replace what I had lost, but now I had lost my own brother. I was supposed to protect him, but the moment I saw what I wanted, I abandoned him, just like Mom always abandoned us. Terrified, I ran back to our apartment, because I didn't know where else he would go. When I reached the top of the stairs, I suddenly stopped. My brother was curled up by the locked door. He had found his own way home and had fallen asleep waiting for me. He slowly opened his eyes. I wanted to explain, but I didn't know where to begin. Mom still hadn't come back, and the key was still missing, so I left her a note telling her we were home. I put it in the box by the door, hoping she would see it. Then I took my brother back to the garage. We found an abandoned car and climbed inside, but this time the owner caught us.
Was macht ihr hier? Ist das euer Auto?
Nein.
Was?
Nein.
Raus hier, aber ganz schnell, ihr könnt hier nicht schlafen. Macht die Tür auf. Wart ihr das da mit dem Fenster?
Nein, das waren wir nicht.
Mach die Tür auf!
Aber das waren wir nicht.
Hey Kleiner, bleib mal stehen!
My brother, terrified, ran off.
So einfach geht das nicht. Wer bezahlt jetzt das Fenster?
The man grabbed me by the coat and slapped me across the face. Then he ordered us to never show our faces there again. The only shelter we had found was gone. We faced down, my stomach was completely empty, and I had no idea where we would sleep that night. But my brother was watching me, so I wiped my tears away and pretended I wasn't scared. Then I remembered Jonas, one of Mom's ex-boyfriends. He had always been nice to us, so I took my brother to where he worked. Jonas was shocked when he saw us. Our clothes were filthy, and we hadn't had a proper meal in days. He called Mom, but it went straight to voicemail, so he left her a message. Then he brought us hot food. My brother and I scarfed it down, barely coming up for air. For the first time in days, we felt safe, warm, and full. I started to believe that Jonas might take us in. To prove we weren't a burden, I went to help him wash cars and pick up trash. I did every chore I could find. I wanted him to see that I was useful. But that evening, Jonas suddenly told us to get in the car. I thought he was going to let us stay with him, maybe taking us somewhere safe. But shortly after we drove off, I recognized the roads outside the window. It wasn't the way home. It was the way to child services.
Halt an!
Jack!
Lass uns raus! Lass uns raus!
Jack!
Mann, komm.
Jack, es geht nicht anders. Ich kann Hannah nicht erreichen.
Lass mich.
Ich bin nicht euer Vater, Jack. Ich kann mich nicht um euch kümmern. Ich habe keine Zeit.
Ich gehe jetzt mit Manuel nach Hause.
Aber da ist keiner, Jack.
Doch,
Nein, da ist keiner.
doch.
Warum willst du sie schützen, hä?
Weil du lügst.
Was ist denn mit Mama?
Ich gehe nicht zurück ins Heim.
Was? Das ist doch auch egal. Lass uns doch bitte einfach nach oben gehen.
Lass mich!
He wasn't our father, and Mom hadn't been part of his life for a long time. I refused to believe it. We had been abandoned. I took my brother's hand and walked away. We wandered through the side until his steps grew slower and slower. He said his legs hurt, then sat down and refused to take another step. So I hoisted him onto my back. With every step I took, his body seemed to get heavier. There were several times I almost dropped him, but I gritted my teeth and kept going. Just as dawn was breaking, we finally made it back to our street. I looked up and saw that the lights in our apartment were on. Mom was back. I woke my brother and, grabbing his hand, ran up the stairs. All the hunger, fear, and exhaustion vanished. For a brief moment, I believed everything was going to be okay. Mom opened the door, smiling at us as if she had only been gone for a few hours. I threw my arms around her, holding on tight and refusing to let go. I had spent days looking for her, but she didn't ask where we had been sleeping, didn't ask what we had eaten. She didn't even notice the slap mark on my face. Instead, she excitedly told us she had met a new man. Then she held out her hand to show me a diamond ring. She wouldn't stop talking about him. I should have been angry, but all I felt was relief because she was back. And in that moment, I was still willing to believe that her coming back meant she loved us. While we were eating, my brother excitedly told Mom that he had learned how to tie his own shoes.
Wirklich? Wow. Das ist ja toll. Woher kannst du das denn?
Hat Jack mir beigebracht.
Wirklich, Jax? Hast du ihn beigebracht? Das ist ja toll.
In that moment, I actually felt a little happy because I thought she had finally seen me. But I soon realized that her idea of a good big brother was just someone who could take care of her kid for her. I walked over to the box by the door, wondering if Mom had read the note I left. But when I opened the box, the note was still sitting there untouched. It hadn't been unfolded. She hadn't even touched it. While we were wandering the streets, she was off somewhere else living as if we didn't even exist. In that moment, I finally understood. Mom hadn't accidentally forgotten us. She just figured we would always be there waiting for her. She could disappear whenever she wanted, and I would still take care of my brother. Every time she abandoned us, I became the parent, and she remained the child. If I kept staying, it was going to happen again. She would meet another man, run off with another group of friends, and vanish behind another door. My brother would ask me when she was coming back, and I would have to lie to him all over again. Early the next morning, I quietly packed up our clothes. I woke my brother and told him we were leaving. Mom was still fast asleep. She had no idea we were walking out of her life. I took my brother's hand and opened the door. This time, I didn't leave a note because I finally understood that she would never read it. We took a train back to the group home. When we reached the front door, I stood outside for a long time. This was the place I had been so afraid to return to. But now, it was the only door left that I could knock on. I raised my hand and knocked. This time, I'm going to make it on my own.